Hello, welcome back. We're carrying on with the Faun SLT. So far, as you can see, I've got most of the chassis built up, and so chassis there and all the running gear and the winches over here. We'll go through them as we go along. So what have I got so far? Chassis, dead simple to put together. The only thing I'd say about this kit is it seems to be an old mould. I don't mean that in an unpleasant way. There's a lot of parts that, if you can imagine, a bit more than flash. There's like a bowl of plastic on the sides of some of them that's got to be taken off, which is a bit more difficult to taking flash off. Some of them don't fit at all, and you have to re-engineer them to make them fit. But hey, it's you know, at the end of the day, that's what we're doing it for, isn't it? It's to keep us out of mischief, I suppose. So the chassis itself and the engineering bed there all go together really quite well. The stanchions for the axles, it's got a rocker suspension system on it, which is this here, where you've got a leaf spring on each side, a large leaf spring on each side, and the axle goes across like so. Yeah, that's probably the wrong axle, but I'm just doing that for demonstration. So that's what that is. The cab sits on the front of the chassis there. It just slides on. So I suppose in real life it would be really quite easy to detach it. The engine compartment is here, if that's of any interest to you. Engine and radiator sit in that compartment there, but we'll get to that in a minute or two. So all the bits here go together really well. I've not put any of the prop shafts or the drive shafts in yet, because without the axles it doesn't make any sense. I want to be able to put them all in one go, so that's why the universal joints are missing off there. That's about it on there. See, simple stuff, there's not a lot there. The axles, put them together, they're not difficult to put together, but as I say, some of it doesn't really fit together. You have two plastic pins at C1 there, which go through the steering axles there, and if you glue them, the axles won't steer anymore. Simple as that. So if you want to pose your kit, then you've got to find a way of fixing that in. And what I did was I heated the end of, I used dental tools to do a lot of the work on the kits. They've got all sorts of different shapes, really clever stuff, and don't cost very much. But you can see that was burnt on the end, and basically heat it up with a tiny blowtorch, and then, where's it go? Just touch the end and that will melt it over. That's the pin C1. Easy enough to do, don't burn your fingers. So that's that. The differential housing there. One drive axle on the front seems a bit odd. If you're going to go to the expense of building something like this, why not make it an 8x8 instead of an 8x6? I don't want to teach anybody to suck eggs, but if it's got 8 wheels and only 6 drive, it's an 8x6. If it's got 8 wheels and all drive, it's an 8x8. I haven't put any of the axles on, as you can see. For obvious reasons, I need to paint it all first, and I'll get to that in a second or two. Anything else on there? Obviously the shock absorbers can't go on if the axles aren't on. So that's about it. The brake cylinders are very, the cylinders themselves are a lump of plastic, moulded plastic, but where they fit into the the back plate of the axle, there's only a very small pin there, and I've knocked them off a couple of times just handling it, so you need to be careful with that. Once it's set, and if you're not as anxious as I am to get going, then once it's set hard, it's quite solid, obviously. Again, more axles, more wheels, put all the wheels together. Again, I don't want to teach anybody to suck eggs. Because it's an 8x6, it's two different kinds of wheel. This wheel has a lump in the middle, which has got the drive shaft in it. And that goes on the drive wheels. So it's got the half shafts in there. And that little plate there is so you can take it off and then take the half shaft out. And obviously the one that isn't driven doesn't have it. So on the second steer, the lazy steer, you use those wheels with no lump in the middle. The spare wheels, obviously, the spare wheel, it's got a big hole right through it. You can see that there. So that's the spare wheel. What are we up to now? See, I'm waffling on, forgot what I'm doing. All the little bits here that go on, again I've left the drive shafts out, prop shafts, drive shafts, whichever you prefer to call them, until I put the axles on and put the running gear assembly together. Again, more axles, mud flaps, we've got those on, mud guards there. And if you watch these videos of mine before, you'll know that I paint it all, get as much put on the kit as I can and then paint it so that I don't get loads of shadows and different shades of paint. I've put all the boxes together. That's the fuel tank and the spare wheel assembly, and that is this here. All goes together really quite easily, and it sits underneath there, like so. So again, I don't want to put it on because I want to paint it first. The thing that I did find though is you can probably see that I've glued the filler tube up and then taken it back off again, because what I found was when you came to put it on onto there, I couldn't, the filler tube just won't fit through that hole. It's as simple as that. So what I'm going to do, of course, is push it in through the other way and then glue it in when it's in situ. He said with hope in his heart. Best laid plans of mice and men. And the torque bars, again, they won't go in until the suspension's in. Whoops, you can't see that. Torque bars won't go in until the suspension and the axles are on. So that's about it. The spare wheel, as I say, fits neatly into that carrier there. And that's about all I can say on that. What have we got next? As I mentioned earlier, the cab slides onto the top of the chassis there. So it just slides onto this portion here, this section here. Sanded it all off because it doesn't quite fit as nicely as you might want it to, but it does go on there. All the rest of it's simple enough on there. It's nice and neat, and it should be, he said with hope in his heart, it should be easy to slide the cab on there. Again, more drive shafts, and oh, that's not a drive shaft, that's a steering shaft that runs up to the steering box, which would be under the cab, I guess, and the steering mechanism, that's got to go on, but there's no point in putting that on until at least the cab and the axles are on. What else have we got then? Then it tells you to put all the wheels on. As I say, I've simply assembled them. There's a couple of PE parts, mud guards, that I haven't made and put on yet. I tend to break it when it's fragile stuff like that, so I'll put it on last. What else is on there? It's assembling the wheels and bits of steering gear, winch gear at the back. It's a cable guide for your winch. That's this one here, which sticks out the back there so that you can have your cable going in pretty much any direction you wanted. These are also cable guides, and they would normally turn. There's hydraulic pipes go to it, as you can see, and they would normally you'd be able to turn those in any direction you wished. Obviously you've got to glue them into place because the hydraulics don't really work. What else is there? Let me see, nothing on there. Oh, you find this on the European trucks, military trucks. That cross there, the PE17, is white, and I'm guessing, I've never driven one, but I'm guessing that is so that when you turn your lights out, the vehicle behind you can see the white cross and knows where you are. It's got an idea of where you are if it's pitch black. What else have we got? Putting boxes together, toolboxes together at the side. That's these two boxes here. Simple enough, they just fall together. One thing I would say that I find a bit odd is there are no controls for the winches. There are no controls on the winch, and there are no controls in the cab. Looked at many reference pictures and can't see the controls. So my guess is that the winch controls are in one of these tool compartments, one of these boxes here, and that's why you can't see them, because they're hidden in a box. two lights, there's two working lights. Oh, sorry, just threw that away again there. Two working lights there that go into the top of the boxes, one on each side. In real life they fold down, and unfortunately it's in real life, is it? So I've not put the glass in them yet. Let's see if I can get this to zoom in on them. I don't think that'll focus on that, it's far too small. Will it? No, you'd just go mad trying to look at that, wouldn't you? In there you can see a tiny little LED. It's an 0402 LED chip on there. The wires, as you can see, are extremely fine, and they will go, the light itself lives on there, stands upright, and I've got a little hole that goes through, so they'll go through and then come back up again. These tiny little LEDs, if you buy them in this country, they're really quite expensive. If you send off to China for them, they're really very cheap. Somebody's making a profit, aren't they? And so that's two of those. I'll put the glass in them when I've got it all painted up. There's some tools that go on the mud guards here. There's a spade that goes on the top of this one, and there's something else goes on the side here. I think it's a pickaxe. But apart from that, there's two photo etch boxes, and they're to carry two jerry cans, one in each. And I can't put the jerry can in because then I won't be able to paint the bracket properly. And I've already broken one arm off there. I'll have to put that back on, find it and put it back on. So that's, as I say, some of it's very fragile, and I do tend to handle the stuff a lot. So there's the jerry cans. You make two of those and one in each side. From all the vehicles that I've seen, they seem to be painted white. I don't know what white means. I'm guessing it's water rather than, let's go backwards a bit, rather than fuel. And the two mud guards go onto the side. Now I'm assuming that this edge here fixes to this edge here. I'm hoping it does, because that's what I've done. I've glued it together on there to give it a little bit of rigidity really, and glued it together on there. Doesn't quite level up, but it does glue in quite nicely. On the back of those you have again two PE mud flaps that are down here, and again I've not put them in. I'll put them in much later on when it's almost finished. A couple of other little boxes that just plonk on, they're already made up, just plonk them on. And that's about it for there. The hangers fit nicely, all that goes together really quite nicely. Then the engine cover and the radiator cover at the top here. Again, it all goes together really quite neatly. So that's it there. Okay, goes together quite nicely. The radiator cover in PE, that's got to go on for it to be painted, but I've put these little white knobs of plastic on there, plastic rod cut about 1/2 millimetre in length, because there were 6 holes with no apparent reason for them. In real life they would have been bolted on, so they've had bolts in there, and that's what I've put those in for. But that's the only change I've made on that. Put that over there. That's the cover for it, and all of that fits. Just say one other thing, I put this in here because from the back here you can see it there, you can see the white, you can see right through there into a void, so there would be a cowling in there of some kind, a baffle of some kind, and this sits in there like such. And you know what I'm going to say next, that's where all the wiring's going to go, is in there. It'll all fit. I'm hoping it will all fit in there, but there's an awful lot of it, and that will all fit in there hopefully nice and neatly, and then that cover goes on. It won't fit on that. Oh, it does. Will fit on as such and should hide all that wiring. I'm hoping to be able to get the battery in there as well, so I can just lift that off, change a battery if needed, and put it back on again. But, so that's those two. Take that back off. We're getting there, we're getting there. A couple don't know all the little bits that went on. There's where you glue your toolboxes on. I've put them already on the sides, or glued on. Transfer box on the top here, which goes at the top there. They've not put any detail on it other than the transfer box itself, and that would go, in real life, that would go through here into that oh, can you see it? Yeah, into that transfer box, and then the props, drive shafts if you wish, would come out through the back and front and back of it. And that is about it. Oh, winch guides that I've already partially mentioned on the back here. That's these two that the winch guides fixed to. Then it's on to air cleaners, air tanks, another set of jerry cans that go on the side here, on the side here. The air cleaner's putting together, and that piece there, if you're looking for it, it's not that shape, it's simply circular. It's circular to go on the end of that tank. I don't know why they've done it that way. It says to put, they send little bits of copper wire, copper wire and some string, two different kinds of copper wire thicknesses, and they also send some rubber tube, silicone tube, which is really good. I've only used some of it, and what I've done is I've changed it slightly. I've drilled the holes into these tanks so that the wire sticks in properly. Can you see it there? Yeah, you can. So I've drilled the wire, the holes into the tanks and pushed the wire in. Then I've drilled new holes into the chassis there, the working plate, and pushed them through. Just folded them over on the other side. You can just see them there and there. Just folded them over and glued them down, because otherwise you're just contact gluing them on, and you can bet your life they're going to fall off if you do that, even though you use super glue. So that's those, easy enough to put on. Then it's taken a long time, isn't it? Sorry about that. Again, the winches, really quite easy to put together, but some of them are really are a bit dodgy. They don't fit together very well. Once you've assembled it all, it tells you to put some of the wire, the cable in, some of the wire that they're using as tubes, to put that into the winches. It also gives you some string and cotton fibre to make the winch cable out of. Personally, I don't like that. What I've made the winch cables out of is 1mm braided picture wire. This is brass. It's the last of this one that I've got. I've just had to order some more. Aside from let me wind this in a little bit. Aside from the pipes that they mention you should put on at this stage, which are on the side here, you've got to look carefully to see where they go. And you've also got to look at reference pictures to see where they go. And they come back out on this side. They go through a mounting plate there, and then they just disappear into nothing. They don't attach to anything down this end, so I've just glued them onto the sides there. So that was the one I used with the wire that they sent, and basically because I wired it all in, so all the tubes were in, I ran out, there's none left, so I used some steel wire on this. And to be fair, the steel wire I think works better than the copper wire. It's more rigid, it's not easier to bend, but once it's bent it stays there, it maintains its shape, whereas the copper wire tends to, if you touch it again, it bends again. And again, all around the other side of it, again the 1mm picture wire to hold it all together. You can see the number of ejector pin marks on the bottom there, 8 of them just for that one little plate. It's it's quite a lot. And you can also see where it doesn't really fit together around the top there. Yeah, and it's the same on a lot of the parts on this. There's a bit down there somewhere that doesn't fit together as well. A lot of ejector pin marks basically all over it. But there you go, it's older technology. I believe the mould was made in 2002, so it's 22 years old, isn't it? Things have moved on. Again, it doesn't fit very well around there. Bit of filler and you're off and away. Yeah, so that's the two winches. That one's got a radiator on it. That is the radiator there at the top, and that'll be an old oil cooler, I would imagine. The oil tank is on the top here. Let's wind it back again. Oh, wrong way. There we go. So the oil tank's on the top here, and there's a hydraulic tank there. One of them's going to be oil and one's going to be water, but I guess that's the hydraulic tank, that's the water tank, to be honest. And if you can see, if you look in there, I don't know if you can see them, I've drilled through on these, drilled several holes into it, because there are many more pipes that go from there to this radiator and to parts of here. On this one in particular, there are 2 more pipes to come out the bottom there. It's fiddly, but you know, it's worth doing, isn't it? And that's about it for there, he said. It's quite a lot really, isn't there? And yeah, I don't think I've missed anything there. Yeah, the winch on the other side, I think that's a water tank. It's too flimsy at the top to be a hydraulic tank. That's a hydraulic tank, that's a water tank. And they both sit on that same frame on there. Yeah, don't do what I did at first. I put that back, right back. It fits very neatly if you put it right back, but then you can't get that tank on top. So that's where it lives at the front. And what else have we got? Again, it tells you where to put some of the pipes. The cable guides, as I mentioned earlier, the cables come along here, go through that guide, then loop around. On this diagram, it tells you to bring it along and then loop it onto the one on the same side. I don't think in real life you'd be able to do that. You'd have to come around over the back and hook it onto this side, and likewise this one round and onto there. Just a minute while I go and kill the cat. So that's what I intend to do, is bring them through the cable guide and hook it, this one on this side and this one on this side. It's what it looks like on most of the reference photographs anyway. So that's about it for that one. Then there's just a couple of little bits. There's another couple of air tanks to go on there, assembled into a complete assembly, which is this here. I've drilled all the holes in the end of it. You can see them quite clearly there. The holes in the end of them, so that they can just have the air pipes drop down, and when they're put on, I haven't put the 5th wheel on yet. It then goes on to 2 diagrams of all the pipe work, all the rest of the pipe work, and you can see that it's quite a maze of pipe work to go on there. And I can't put any of that on until I've painted it, otherwise none of it's going to make any sense. What I have done is I've put these 3 on this side and 2 on this side in, which are the hydraulic pipes to those cable guides. I've used a steel pipe, steel wire, because as I say, I used up all the copper wire. I don't know how many's that. And they're just glued down and they go to nowhere, so I've capped them off underneath and just ties it together and then glue that in. It's easier to glue a little piece of styrene tube onto the underside than it is to super glue the wire on. I've not made them as neat as I could because they would get battered around, I'm sure, in real life, being exposed like that. So that's what I've done with them. It tells you which size wires to use and which size hoses to use. PVC, 8.8mm PVC hose and 0.5mm wire. You know, so it's quite comprehensive. There's another drawing on this, on the last page here, and that tells you the same thing where the rest of the cables and the wires go. And I'm quite impressed that they've supplied all that, because they don't normally. Then it goes on to building the trailer, which is going to be quite a while away yet, I'm afraid. So that's that. What else we've done, as you can see, you probably notice there's wires sticking out of it all over the place. I've got a problem here. These are for the Susies, and normally I put the battery pack at the back and just run 2, a live and a neutral, over to the front. But on this occasion, because I want to switch everything individually, I've ended up with 10 wires that are going to have to go through the Susies. Not sure how I'm going to do that yet, but I'll have a think about it. All the wiring will go in there, as I've already mentioned, and you can see it gets a little bit complicated under there. That's what you might call a junction box, which is basically just a PCB with all the wires that are coming from the back of the unit. So we've got indicators, which will be hazard lights, fog light and a reversing light on the back. There is a number plate light, but I'm not putting it on, and it's complicated enough as it is. So side lights, hazard lights, fog light, a reversing light, side lights from the cab, as we've already mentioned. There are no lights down the side. This must have just predated the regulations in Europe to have marker lights every metre. So there are reflectors on the guards. There's a reflector all the way along it, but no lights. Personally, I'm quite happy about that, because it'd have been a nightmare putting even more of them on. All the wires come up at the front there to go into PCB. All the wires come up at the back here to go through the Susies and into the trailer. And that, my friends, is about it. It's I've not mentioned that they put nice steel axles, supplied nice steel axles to go through the rear wheels of it, which is nice touch. And that really is that. There's nothing else I can tell you about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all of this painted up, and then I'm going to assemble this and put the cab on it, and then I'll do a final reveal. We're going to have a look at what we've got then. Any questions, any comments, please leave them in the boxes below. It would be great if you could like and subscribe, and if you could share the video as well, that would be fantastic. Thanks for watching. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Ta-ra!